The morning sun washed over Westline Auto Service, but inside the shop the air felt heavy, thick with the kind of tension that made every new day feel like a test. Daniel Brooks, the white shop manager with a crisp shirt and a sharper tongue, strutted across the service floor like he owned the entire block. His eyes scanned customers not for their car issues but for their wallets, judging every person by the shine of their shoes, the age of their car, the clothes on their back. When the old woman entered, leaning on her cane as she tried to steady herself, Daniel exhaled sharply. Her faded purse, trembling hands, and rusty sedan were all he needed to decide she wasn't worth a single minute of his time. "Ma'am," he said, barely glancing at her, "we're fully booked. You'll have to take your problems somewhere else." The woman blinked, her voice fragile. "My brakes, they're grinding badly. I'm afraid to drive another block." Daniel waved a dismissive hand. "Then don't. We're not a charity. Try a cheaper shop outside town." Those words hung in the air like a slap. Two customers turned to look. The old woman lowered her eyes, swallowing her embarrassment as she clutched her keys tighter. Across the bay, Jordan, the young black mechanic wiping grease from his fingers, froze. He'd seen this before, too many times. People with money walked out smiling, but folks who needed simple help were treated like burdens. His hands trembled with frustration, but he forced himself to breathe. Keeping this job was the only thing standing between him and overdue bills at home. But the old woman's eyes, they reminded him of his grandmother, the one who raised him on stories about kindness being a duty, not a luxury. "Ma'am," Jordan said softly, stepping forward, "pop your hood. Let me take a look. I'll check it for free." Daniel's head snapped around. "Jordan, what do you think you're doing?" Jordan ignored him and knelt beside the car, listening to the metal-on-metal grind. It wasn't a big job, just worn brake pads and a loose caliper bolt. Dangerous, yes, but quick to fix. He looked up at her. "You shouldn't drive like this. I'll tighten the bolt now so you can get home safely. No charge. But get the pads replaced soon, all right?" The woman's voice quivered. "Thank you, son. I didn't know who else to ask." That simple sentence, voiced with gratitude and relief, lit a spark of fury in Daniel. He marched toward them, his shoes pounding the floor with anger. "Jordan, you're done. Fired. Pack your things and get out." The old woman gasped. "Sir, please, he was only helping me." Daniel gestured at her, as if she were invisible. "If he wants to volunteer his time, he can do it somewhere else. This is a business, not a soup kitchen." Jordan's heart pounded. Fired? For helping someone? He stood slowly, eyes burning but voice steady. "I wasn't costing the shop a cent. I just didn't want her to drive away unsafe." Daniel leaned in close, voice dripping with contempt. "You don't make the decisions around here. And if you want to play hero, do it unemployed." Silence stretched across the bay. The woman touched Jordan's arm, whispering, "I'm so sorry, child." Jordan forced a small smile. "It's okay. You needed help. That's what matters." Daniel crossed his arms. "Both of you out." Jordan walked out beside the old woman, not knowing that this simple act of kindness, this tiny moment of courage, was about to shake the entire company, expose a truth buried for years, and trigger a chain of events no one at Westline Auto could ever imagine. Because the woman he had helped wasn't just a struggling stranger. She was the owner's mother, and Daniel Brooks had just fired the wrong person for the worst reason possible. The sun had barely set when Jordan reached his small apartment, the place suddenly feeling colder, smaller, quieter than usual. His uniform shirt still smelled of engine oil, but tonight that smell felt like failure instead of pride. He tossed it onto the couch, letting himself sink down as the weight of the day crashed in. Fired. Just like that. No warnings, no second chances, only punishment for doing the right thing. His phone buzzed with a message from his sister. "Did you get off early today? Can you help me pick up groceries?" He stared at the screen without replying. How could he explain that he didn't have a job anymore, that the only income supporting both of them had just disappeared? Across town, the old woman he helped, Miss Helen, sat quietly at her dining table, a cup of tea untouched beside her. She had changed from her simple clothes into something more elegant, her posture straightening with each breath as she dialed a familiar number. She rarely called her son at night, but today wasn't like other days. When the line connected, a calm, authoritative voice answered. "Mom? Everything all right?" She exhaled slowly. "Robert, I visited one of your shops today." There was a pause. Which one? Did something happen? Helen closed her eyes. Your manager fired a young man, a mechanic, simply because he helped me when I couldn't afford a full service. The silence that followed was thick and heavy. Finally, Robert spoke, his voice sharper now. He fired someone for helping you? Yes, she said quietly. And he spoke to me like I didn't matter. Like people without money deserve nothing. On the other end, Robert stood from his office chair, jaw set. Mom, give me the name of the shop. And the name of the mechanic. He said his name was Jordan. Her voice trembled, not with fear, but with restrained anger. He treated me with respect when your manager didn't even look at me. I'll take care of it, Robert said. Tonight. Meanwhile, Jordan sat outside on the apartment steps, head in his hands. He couldn't shake the woman's face from his mind. The gratitude, the fear, the shame she carried after being dismissed. He didn't regret helping her, but he regretted losing everything because of a man who saw kindness as weakness. His phone rang suddenly. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something pushed him to answer. Hello. A calm male voice replied. Is this Jordan Miller? Yes, who's calling? This is Samuel from the Hayes Automotive Headquarters. Our CEO would like to meet you tomorrow morning. Jordan blinked, stunned. I'm sorry, what? What? I'm not authorized to discuss details. Transportation will arrive at 8 a.m. sharp. Before Jordan could ask another question, the call ended. He stared at the phone, trying to understand what universe he had stepped into. Across town, Robert Hayes paced his office, replaying every word his mother told him. His company, built on trust, service, and decency, had allowed someone like Daniel Brooks to run a shop. Someone who disrespected customers and punished honest employees. By midnight, he had reviewed Daniel's internal reports, customer feedback, and employee files. The pattern was clear: complaints buried, negative remarks erased, profit reports inflated. This wasn't just bad management. It was rot. Robert leaned back in his chair and whispered to himself, tomorrow, everything changes. And for the first time in hours, he allowed himself a small smile. Because the mechanic Daniel fired, the one who showed kindness when no one else did, would soon discover that the world had finally noticed his goodness. Morning crept in quietly, but Jordan barely noticed. He stood at his window, eyes fixed on the street below. He hadn't slept more than an hour. The call from last night kept echoing in his mind. The CEO wanted to meet him? It felt unreal. People like him didn't get invitations from CEOs. They got warnings, layoffs, and bills shoved under their doors, not luxury cars arriving at their doorstep. But when 8 o'clock struck, a sleek black sedan rolled to a smooth stop in front of his building. The driver stepped out, dressed in a crisp uniform, and nodded respectfully. Mr. Miller? I'm here to take you to Hayes headquarters. Jordan swallowed hard. Do you know why they want me? The driver smiled politely. You'll understand everything soon. As they drove through the city, Jordan stared out the window, heart pounding. Each mile felt heavier. What if they wanted him to sign something? What if they blamed him for causing trouble? He clenched his hands to stop them from shaking. Meanwhile, in a spotless office 30 floors above the city, Robert Hayes reviewed documents and video clips sent overnight. Customer testimonies, community reports, complaints that never reached corporate, and internal memos from Daniel. It was worse than he expected. Daniel wasn't only rude. He had turned the shop into a place where profit mattered more than human safety. A soft knock broke the silence. His mother, Helen, stepped inside. She wore a calm expression, but beneath it burned a quiet fire. Is everything ready? Yes, Robert answered. The board will gather tomorrow morning. The evidence is undeniable. Helen nodded slowly, relief mixed with sorrow. Your father always said bad habits grow roots if you ignore them. I should have tested the shop sooner. I didn't realize how far this had spread. Robert touched her hand gently. You shouldn't blame yourself. You saw the truth the moment it happened. And now we fix it. Downstairs, the elevator doors opened, and Jordan stepped out cautiously. Everything felt surreal. The polished floors, the quiet hum of conversation, the receptionist greeting him by name. He felt out of place, like a mechanic who had stepped into another world by mistake. Mr. Miller? A woman approached him with a warm smile. I'm Sarah, the CEO's assistant. Please follow me. He walked behind her, palms sweating. Every award on the walls, every framed photograph of community events, made him wonder how a company built on good values had allowed someone like Daniel to run a shop. When Sarah opened the office door, Robert Hayes stood waiting. Jordan froze. The man radiated authority without even speaking. "Mr. Miller," Robert said, extending his hand. "Thank you for coming." Jordan shook his hand hesitantly. "Sir, I'm not sure why I'm here." Helen stepped forward with a soft smile. "Because, dear, you're the reason everything is about to change." Jordan's breath caught. "Ma'am, you're the woman from the shop?" She nodded. "And I never forgot the way you treated me when you had nothing to gain." Robert motioned for him to sit. "Jordan, what happened at Westline Auto was unacceptable. Firing you for helping a customer, especially one in danger, goes against every principle this company was built on." Jordan looked down at his hands. "I didn't mean to cause any trouble. I just didn't want her to drive unsafe." Helen's voice softened. "That's exactly why you're here." Robert slid several documents across the table. "Jordan, we've spent all night reviewing evidence. Daniel has been abusing customers, hiding complaints, and targeting employees who show compassion." Jordan's eyes widened. "Sir, I saw some things, but I didn't know it was that deep." "It is," Robert said firmly. "And tomorrow, we will expose everything publicly." Jordan blinked, overwhelmed. "What does that have to do with me?" "Everything," Helen answered. "Because you were the only one who did the right thing. You saved me, and you saved countless future customers without even knowing it." A long silence settled before Robert continued. "Tomorrow, I want you present in the boardroom. I want them to see the man Daniel tried to bury. I want the entire company to hear your story." Jordan sat frozen. "Me? I don't belong in a boardroom. I'm just a mechanic." "No," Helen said firmly. "You're exactly who belongs there. A reminder of what this company stands for." Jordan felt something shift inside, a mix of disbelief and pride. For the first time since losing his job, he felt seen, respected. Robert stood, extending his hand again. "Tomorrow morning, everything changes. And I want you standing with us when the truth comes out." Jordan nodded slowly, his voice thick. "I'll be there." As he walked back to the elevator, he finally let himself breathe. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in his life, he felt like justice wasn't a dream. It was coming for real. And it all began with one act of kindness. The night before the meeting stretched long and restless. Jordan sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the suit Robert's assistant had delivered earlier. A simple, clean, dark gray outfit that made him look like someone he barely recognized. Someone important. Someone whose voice mattered. But the weight of tomorrow pressed hard on him. He wasn't used to rooms filled with executives, cameras, and powerful people. He was used to engines, grease, and the quiet language of machines. Meanwhile, across town, Daniel Brooks was celebrating. He sat at a busy restaurant with two shop supervisors, laughing loudly as he bragged about finally getting rid of dead weight. He didn't know that while he toasted his imaginary promotion, Robert Hayes' investigative team had already compiled weeks of hidden camera footage, customer testimonies, and financial reports strong enough to tear down an entire branch of management. That night, Helen sat by her window, hands folded in her lap. She wasn't angry. She was determined. She had seen the heart of her husband's company shrinking under the weight of selfishness, and tomorrow would be the day it breathed again. "Tomorrow," she whispered softly, "we restore our name." At dawn, Jordan stepped outside, breath catching when he saw the same black sedan from yesterday waiting for him. The driver opened the door with a small nod. "Good morning, Mr. Miller. Ready?" Jordan wasn't sure he was, but he nodded anyway. "Let's go." They drove through quiet streets, the city still waking. His heart pounded harder with each passing block. He rehearsed what he might say in front of the board, but his mind stumbled every time. What if he froze? What if they asked him something he couldn't answer? What if he embarrassed himself? Inside the headquarters, tension buzzed like electricity. Employees moved quickly, whispering about the unusual emergency meeting. Whatever was happening, it wasn't normal. And it wasn't small. Robert stood in his office reviewing the final details. His legal team, HR executives, and investigators moved efficiently around him. His mother watched from the corner, calm but sharp-eyed. "Everything ready?" she asked. "Every angle covered," he answered. "There's no way he can deny anything." Helen nodded. "Good. Then today, we set an example." At 9:30, Jordan arrived at the building, guided upstairs by security and staff who greeted him respectfully. He felt strange, humbled yet powerful at the same time. It was a feeling he had never tasted before. "Sarah, the CEO's assistant, met him outside the boardroom. "You don't need to say much," she assured him gently. "Just be yourself. You already did the hardest part." Jordan tried to smile, but felt the fear tighten his chest. "I'm not sure people like me belong in rooms like this." "Oh, trust me," she said warmly. "Today, you belong more than anyone." Inside the boardroom, directors and reporters filled the seats. Cameras were being set up. Microphones tested. The polished table gleamed under bright lighting. It felt like a stage, and Jordan was part of the story. Then, right on cue, Daniel walked in through the side door, wearing his finest suit and the confidence of a man expecting a promotion. When he spotted the cameras, he smirked proudly. But the moment his eyes landed on Jordan sitting quietly near the back, his smile faltered. "What is he doing here?" Daniel wondered, irritation twisting his face. Robert entered next, followed closely by Helen. Immediately the room rose to its feet. The respect they commanded was unmistakable. Even Daniel straightened, trying to look dignified. Then Helen took her place at the head of the table. Daniel frowned. The owner's mother? Why is she leading this? Robert opened the meeting with a brief greeting. "Today," he said clearly, "we address a matter of integrity that affects this entire company." Daniel's heartbeat quickened. That wasn't the tone of a promotion speech. Helen stood, her presence commanding, her expression calm but unwavering. She looked straight at Daniel, and he stiffened. He recognized her, but it was too late to pretend he didn't. "I visited one of our shops," Helen began. "I walked in as a simple customer needing help, and I was treated like someone whose safety was unimportant because I didn't look profitable enough." Murmurs spread across the room as Daniel's face drained of color. "But one mechanic," she continued, "treated me with dignity and kindness. He made sure I was safe." She turned her gaze toward Jordan. "While another man abused his position to fire him for helping me." Reporters leaned forward. Cameras zoomed in. Daniel swallowed hard, sweat forming on his brow. Robert nodded to his team. The lights dimmed. A projector screen lowered. And then the footage began. Clip after clip popped onto the screen. Daniel mocking customers. Daniel threatening workers. Daniel bragging about firing Jordan. Daniel calling struggling customers a waste of time. Daniel encouraging other managers to do the same. Every word was recorded. Every arrogance exposed. The room sat in stunned silence. The man Daniel thought he was, powerful, untouchable, shattered in seconds. Helen stepped forward again. Jordan Miller stood for values this company was built on. Kindness, safety, respect. And he was punished for it. Today, we correct that wrong. Jordan felt tears sting his eyes. He never imagined the truth would come out like this, or that powerful people would stand up for him. Daniel tried to speak, but Robert stopped him sharply. "Mr. Brooks, there is nothing you can say that excuses this. You will answer for every action you took." As security approached Daniel, the man who once strutted through the shop like he owned the world now looked small, powerless, and afraid. And Jordan realized, this wasn't just justice. It was the beginning of something bigger. The boardroom emptied slowly after Daniel's removal, but the echoes of what happened still vibrated through the air. People whispered in hallways, reporters hurried to send breaking news updates, and employees who had never met Jordan now spoke his name with admiration and pride. Yet Jordan himself remained frozen in his seat long after the cameras disappeared. His heart thumped in a rhythm he couldn't steady. He had never expected justice to happen so publicly, so loudly, so decisively. Helen approached him first, her gentle hands folding around his. "You did nothing wrong," she reminded him softly. "You only showed kindness. Today, the world needed to see that." Jordan nodded, his throat tight. "I didn't want trouble. I just didn't want you driving unsafe. And that," she said, "is exactly why you belong here." Robert joined them, sliding a folder onto the table. "Jordan, I'm offering you a position with us. Something new. Something built around the values you showed that day." Jordan hesitated, fear flickering in his eyes. "Sir, I don't have a degree. I'm not a manager. I don't even know how to handle office work." Robert smiled gently. "We're not asking for titles or polished resumes. We're asking for your heart, your integrity, your experience with real people." Helen added, "You see things others overlook. You listen. You care. Those are skills no classroom can teach." Jordan opened the folder. Inside was a newly created role. Customer care advocate, responsible for training managers on respect-driven service, identifying unfair practices, and ensuring shops treated all customers with dignity. It wasn't a corporate figurehead title. It was a position with purpose, responsibility, and real impact. His hands trembled. "You really want me for this?" Robert nodded firmly. "You're exactly the kind of person we want shaping our future." Tears stung Jordan's eyes as he shook their hands. For the first time in his life, he wasn't being judged for what he lacked. He was being valued for who he was. Later that afternoon, the company sent out a formal announcement about Daniel's termination and the company-wide reforms being implemented. Employees across the state read the updates in shock. Many who had silently suffered under harsh management felt hope rising for the first time in years. A few even cried, knowing someone had finally listened. Across the city, inside a small cafe, two mechanics from Westline Auto, employees who once feared speaking out, read the news on their phones. "Jordan did that," one whispered. "He stood up and changed everything. He got fired for helping someone, and now he's helping the whole company." Meanwhile, Daniel sat alone in his apartment, lights off, phone ringing nonstop with reporters and former coworkers demanding explanations he didn't have. His world, once inflated with ego, had collapsed in a single morning. He replayed every harsh word he'd spoken at the shop, every insult, every dismissal, and he realized too late how deeply he had misjudged the people around him. The next day, Jordan arrived at headquarters again, this time not as a guest, but as a member of the team. Sarah greeted him with a warm smile and handed him his ID badge. Seeing his name printed beneath the company logo sent a wave of emotion through him. He swallowed hard and whispered, "Thank you." His first task was visiting Westline Auto, the place that once broke him. As he walked back into the shop, the other mechanics froze. Miguel, who had always admired Jordan's kindness, rushed over and grabbed his shoulders. "Bro, is it true? They hired you back?" Jordan smiled. "Not back. They hired me to help fix things everywhere." The entire shop erupted with excitement. Even customers present in the waiting area applauded him. No one had ever clapped for him before. At the center of the shop floor stood the empty office that once belonged to Daniel. Jordan stared at it, feeling the ghosts of humiliation for a moment. The anger, the unfairness, the hurt. But then, with a slow exhale, he let all of it go. That chapter was closed. Robert and Helen arrived moments later, causing the entire room to fall silent out of respect. Helen stepped beside Jordan. "Would you like to say something to the team?" Jordan blinked. "Me? You," she said kindly. He took a breath and turned to the workers. "I'm not here to be anyone's boss," he began quietly. "I'm here because I know what it feels like to be ignored, to be talked down to be treated like your voice doesn't matter." Heads nodded around him. Even customers leaned forward to listen. "But starting today," Jordan continued, "every customer who walks in here will be treated like a person, not a profit. And every employee will be treated with respect, not fear." Silence hung for a moment. Then the room erupted in cheers. Mechanics clapped, customers smiled, and even shy newcomers wiped their eyes. For the first time, Westline Auto felt like a place where dignity lived again. As Jordan stepped outside, sunlight warming his shoulders, he saw Helen waiting by her car. She looked at him with pride. "My husband would have trusted you," she said softly. "And so do I." Jordan felt a warmth in his chest deeper than gratitude. It was belonging. This was more than a job. It was the beginning of something bigger. Weeks passed, and the transformation inside Hayes Automotive Group spread faster than anyone expected. Shops that once echoed with tension now buzzed with warmth. Managers began greeting customers with genuine smiles instead of calculated glances. Mechanics took extra minutes to explain repairs instead of rushing through transactions. And everywhere Jordan visited, people recognized him, not as the man who was fired, but as the man who helped rebuild an entire company's soul. Each morning, he woke with a sense of purpose he had never known. He wasn't wearing a mechanic's coveralls anymore, but the values he carried from the garage stayed with him. He listened, he observed, he taught, and above all, he uplifted. It shocked him how many employees admitted they had been afraid to show compassion before, afraid it would get them punished like he once was. One afternoon, Robert called him into his office. The city glowed behind the tall windows as Jordan entered, feeling small yet honored. "I wanted to show you something," Robert said, sliding a tablet across the desk. On the screen was a chart, customer trust ratings skyrocketing, employee retention doubling, Community support messages pouring in by hundreds. The numbers were more than statistics. They were proof that kindness had power. "This happened because of you," Robert said quietly. Jordan shook his head. "No, sir. It happened because someone finally listened." Helen stepped in from the hallway, smiling as she overheard him. "Jordan, you underestimated the fire you lit. Most people don't change unless they see someone brave enough to stand for what's right. You gave them that courage." Her words brought a tight warmth to his chest. It still amazed him. The woman he helped without knowing who she was now treated him like family. A few days later, Helen invited him to a community event where the Hayes Foundation donated repair vouchers to low-income residents. Dozens of people lined up, grateful and hopeful. As Jordan helped guide them, a small girl tugged on his sleeve. "Are you the man on TV?" she asked shyly. Jordan knelt. "What TV? My mom said you help people even when you didn't have to. She said you're why we can fix our car now." Her mother stepped forward, eyes glistening. "Thank you. We couldn't afford repairs for months. You changed more than a company. You changed families like ours." Jordan felt something inside him settle, a quiet, steady ripple of meaning. Every hardship he endured, every insult from Daniel, every night he went home defeated, all of it led to this moment. That evening, as the sun dipped low, Robert gathered the staff for a small ceremony in the main training center. Cameras flashed softly, but the atmosphere felt intimate. "Today," Robert announced, "we honor the person who reminded us that service isn't about money. It's about humanity." Helen stepped forward with a plaque engraved with Jordan's name. "This is for the man who saved a stranger on the street and ended up saving an entire company." The room filled with applause so loud it vibrated in Jordan's bones. He felt tears slip down his cheeks, but for once, he wasn't embarrassed. He stood straighter, breathing deeply, letting the moment wash through him like a rising tide. When the cheers settled, he spoke quietly. "I didn't expect any of this. I'm just a mechanic who didn't want someone driving home unsafe. But I learned something. Sometimes doing the right thing feels small to you, but huge to someone else." Helen nodded proudly. "And sometimes," she added, "that small act shakes an entire empire." As people clapped again, Jordan looked around at the faces, workers who now felt valued, customers who felt seen, leaders who finally remembered their purpose. A wave of gratitude swept through him. Later that night, he walked alone to the company rooftop. The city lights shimmered below, like thousands of tiny headlights stretching into the future. Helen joined him, her hands tucked behind her back. "You know," she said softly, "my husband used to stand on rooftops too. Said the view helps you remember how big the world is and how far one act of kindness can travel." Jordan smiled at the skyline. "I think I understand that now." Helen touched his shoulder. "Jordan, I'm proud of you. Truly." He blinked back emotion. "Thank you. For everything." "Don't thank me," she replied warmly. "Just keep being who you are." And as the night breeze moved around them, Jordan realized something powerful. He wasn't just part of the company now. He was part of its legacy. A legacy built on compassion. A legacy restored by one simple choice to help a stranger. Justice had been served. Kindness had won. And Jordan's story, once buried under unfairness, now shone like a beacon for everyone who believed their goodness didn't matter. But it did. It always did.